My name is James, and as of 20 minutes ago, my life has become a very strange, very specific kind of romantic comedy. Cliché, the kind I'd usually watch on a streaming service with a pint of ice cream, not the kind I'd expect to live. It all started, as most of my minor disasters do, with a craving, in this case, a desperate late-night need for coffee, the good kind, the kind that comes in a bag you have to grind yourself, not the instant dust I had left in my pantry. The storm outside was biblical. Rain wasn't just falling, it was attacking the city, thrown sideways by a wind that howled like a grieving wolf. It was the kind of night that made the open 24 hours sign of the downtown Metro Market feel less like a convenience and more like a lighthouse. I'd seen him before, of course, the guy at the checkout. Carter, his name tag said so, but I would have known him anyway. He was a fixture of my late night grocery runs. He had the kind of face that belonged on a magazine, not behind a cash register at 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Sharp jaw, dark hair that was always a little too long and falling into his eyes, and a small silver hoop in his left ear. He had a way of scanning items with a sort of rhythmic, bored grace that I found embarrassingly captivating. Tonight, he looked exhausted, his blue apron wrinkled, his eyes scanning the empty aisles with a kin this night just end look I knew well. I grabbed my overpriced bag of dark roast, a carton of milk I didn't strictly need, and a chocolate bar, comfort food. I made my way to the front. Carter was the only one there, manning register 4. Just this, he asked. His voice was always little rough, like he'd just woken up. Just this, I confirmed, trying to sound casual. Nasty night out, he grunted in agreement, his eyes on the scanner. Me about it. One more minute and I'd be out of here. Beep beep, I paid, fumbling with my card for a second too long. Thanks, have a good night. You too, try to stay dry, he said, handing me the bag. He gave me a brief, tired smile. It was the first time he'd ever really smiled at me. It hit me harder than I expected. I was walking toward the automatic doors when the world went dark. It wasn't a slow fade, it was an abrupt, violent click, thud, plunging the massive store into an oppressive blackness. The ambient hum of the freezers, the soft classical music, the buzz of the fluorescent lights, all gone. The only sound was the storm, which now sounded twice as loud in my own heart, which had just performed a very impressive kick drum solo against my ribs. What the? I heard Carter mutter from behind me. A second later, the emergency lights kicked in. They were not designed for comfort, they were harsh, battery-powered floodlights that cast long, monstrous shadows and painted everything in a sickly greenish yellow. Power's out, Carter stated the obvious. He was already out from behind register, walking toward the front. Great, I said, following him. We both stopped at the automatic doors. They were naturally dead, a solid wall of unmoving glass that showed the rain lashing the pavement outside. Okay, Carter said, rubbing the back of his neck. Okay, power goes out, the doors default to locked, standard procedure. He pulled a set of keys from his belt loop, but the manual override is here. He stuck a key into a small port on the wall. He turned it. Nothing. He jiggled it. Nothing. Come on, you piece of, he grunted, putting his shoulder to the door as if he could physically intimidate it into opening the door. Unsurprisingly, was not intimidated. Is there another way out? I asked, my voice sounding strangely small in the empty supermarket. The back, he said, his voice tight with a frustration that was clearly not just about me. The loading bay. Come on, I followed him. Emergency lights didn't cover the entire store. We moved through aisles of canned goods and cereals that were now just looming dark shapes. It felt like we were in a post-apocalyptic movie, feeling that was not helped by the crash of thunder that shook the entire building. Carter was walking fast. I could see the tension in his shoulders. Does this happen a lot? I asked, trying to fill the silence. The power going out? Yeah, the main grid going down. Not since the '09 blackout. This is bad. We reached the back of the store, past the butcher's counter and the bakery, which smelled faintly of stale bread and bleach. A set of double swinging doors led to the staff only area. Carter pushed through them and I followed him into a concrete hallway. It was even darker back here. He led us to a heavy red metal door with a panic bar across it. This is the fire exit. It'll be loud, but it'll get us out. He shoved the bar, a deafening high-pitched filled the air so loud it made my teeth hurt. But the door didn't budge. Carter slammed his fist against it. No, no, no. No, no, what? I shouted over the alarm. It's deadbolted from the outside, he yelled, pointing at the seam. The night manager, Dave, must have locked it when he did his final walk through. He's not supposed to do that until after I clock out. The alarm, as if sensing our panic, abruptly died. Power surge must have fried its battery. 2. The silence that returned was thick, heavy, and terrifying. We were standing in the near dark. I could just make out Carter's silhouette. He had his hands on his head, staring at the useless door he must not have seen. You come in, Carter said, his voice quiet. He probably saw me at the register, assumed the store was empty, and did his early close. He does that on storm nights. He locks the fire exits and the loading bay from the outside, then sets the main mag locks on the front doors from his car. My stomach turned to ice. So the front doors, they're not just off, they're locked. Magnetically locked by Dave, who is probably halfway home by now. What about your phone? I asked, pulling my own out. No service. The red X over the bars was mocking me. Carter held his up. Screen's glow illuminated his face, which was pale and slick with a thin sheen of sweat. Same, the storm must be sitting right on top of the cell tower. And the store's landline is, well, it's in Dave's office, which he locks. He let out a long, slow breath and leaned his forehead against the cold metal of the fire door. Oh my God, he whispered. We're locked in. I looked at him. I looked at the dark, cavernous hallway. I thought about the thousands of square feet of food, the rows and rows of aisles, the oppressive quiet. Yeah, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I think we are. He turned to look at me, and the emergency light in the hall cast a perfect dramatic shadow across one side of his face. He wasn't the bored, cute cashier anymore. He was just a guy my age who was trapped like me. Well, Carter said, pushing off the door and trying and failing to sound professional, this is a situation. The power is not coming back on. The manager is gone. We have no way to call out. We're stuck here until, I guess, 6:00 a.m. when the morning shift arrives. 6 hours trapped in a dark, cold supermarket with a guy I secretly had a crush on. My brain short-circuited. Okay, I said, nodding slowly. Okay. So what do we do first? Carter looked at me, and for the first time the employee mask dropped completely. He looked scared and tired and utterly bewildered. A small dry laugh escaped him. Honestly, Henry, he said, reading my name off the credit card receipt still clutched in my hand, I have no damn idea, but I think I'm going to need a drink, and I don't mean water. He gestured back toward the main store. A Lessel 12, you want anything? This was without a doubt the strangest night of my life. Lead the way, I said. A supermarket in the dead of night, lit only by emergency floods, is an uncanny valley. It's familiar but all wrong. The bright red sales signs look like warnings. The produce section, usually so vibrant, was a landscape of dark, sleeping shapes. Carter, however, moved with purpose. He was on his home turf. So Henry, he said, his voice echoing slightly, what do you do that requires premium dark roast at midnight on a Tuesday? Graphic designer, I said. Following him, I work from home. My sleep schedule is creative. He chuckled. Creative, I like that. I'm an artist, which is just a creative way of saying broke student. Hence, he waved a hand at the rows of cereal. What are you studying? Painting, actually, which is why I'm here selling $30 bottles of wine to people who just want to get drunk. We'd arrived at aisle 12, the wine and spirits aisle. Carter stopped, put his hands on his hips, and surveyed the selection like a general planning campaign. Okay, he said, this is technically shrinkage and I could get fired, but since the alternative is hypothermia and a panic attack, I'm going to call it necessary supplies. What's your poison? I'm a whiskey guy. If I have a choice, a man of taste. He unhooked a small electronic key from his belt, this one thankfully not relying on the main grid, and unlocked the glass cabinet. He bypassed the cheap stuff and pulled out a heavy bottle of amber liquid, 18-year-old single malt. If we're going to be criminals, we might as well be classy criminals. What about you? I asked. He held up the bottle. This will do. Now we need a base camp. Base camp? We can't just stand here. It's cold and creepy. He was right. The building was already losing its heat. Damp chill seeping in from the walls. I know just the place. He led me to the seasonal section. It was currently stocked for summer living, plastic Adirondack chairs, floral patterned cushions, and in the center a fully assembled patio set with a fake wood table and two surprisingly plush-looking lounge chairs. Behold, Carter said with a grand gesture, the VIP lounge. He started liberating supplies, a bag of artisanal kettle chips, a wedge of brie, the chocolate bar I had purchased, a box of water crackers. He even found two glass tumblers from the home goods aisle. This is the most elaborate stuck in a store scenario I could have imagined, I said, sinking into one of the lounge chairs. It was ridiculously comfortable. If you're going to be trapped, be trapped in style, he said. He cracked the seal on the whiskey and poured two generous measures. The sound of the liquid hitting the glass was the loudest thing in the store. He handed me one, too. Not being outside, he toasted, I'll drink to that. I took a sip. It was smooth, smoky, and immediately warming. It sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. We sat there for a minute in silence, just drinking and listening to the storm rage. The situation was so absurd, so completely outside the realm of normal, that the initial panic had given way to a weird, giddy calm. So I said, breaking the silence, your manager, Dave, sounds like a real winner. Carter let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Dave is a man who peaked in 1995. He's a character. I'm pretty sure he just cost the store an entire night's worth of freezer stock and one bottle of very expensive whiskey and two tumblers, I added, and two tumblers. He's going to be livid. Carter smiled, but it was a tired smile. He took a long pull from his glass, his Adam's apple bobbing. I found myself staring. I looked away quickly. How long have you been working here? Too long. 2 years through my associate's degree. Now I'm at the university finishing my BFA. This pays for canvas mostly. He swirled the whiskey in his glass. What about you? Graphic design. That sounds functional. It's functional, I agreed. I do mostly corporate branding logos for companies that sell, I don't know, data mining software. It's not art, but it pays for my apartment and my late night coffee habit. Hey, don't knock it, he said, turning to look at me. Emergency light was behind him, haloing his head and leaving his face in shadow. Functional is good. Functional is stable. Artist is just a 4-letter word for unemployable. I've seen your art, I said before I could stop myself. He froze. What? Oh God, you have a show right at the little gallery over on Elm the Juncture. He stared at me. You went to that? I was walking by last week. I saw the poster. I recognized you. My face was on fire. I was suddenly grateful for the dim, sickly lighting. I went in. Here stuff is, it's amazing. Carter, that big one, the one with the blues and the it looked like a cityscape but underwater. Tectonic, he said, his voice barely a whisper. It's called Tectonic. Yeah, that one. It's incredible. I mean, I'm just a corporate logo guy, but it really made me feel something. He was quiet for a long time, just looking at me. I couldn't read his expression. I'd overstepped. I'd been a creep. I'd no customer has ever known one, he said. He looked down at his glass. My professors barely came to that. I thank you, Henry. That means a lot. It's true, I said, my voice thick. The whiskey was warm in my stomach, but this was a different kind of warmth. The barrier between us, the customer and cashier, one had just evaporated. We were just two people. Another crash of thunder, louder this time, shook the building. I jumped. It's really cold in here, Carter said, shivering. The thin polyester polo shirt and apron he wore offered no protection, and I don't think this whiskey is going to last us 6 hours. What we need, I said, a brilliant, delinquent idea forming in my head is a change of clothes and in blankets. Carter looked at me, a slow, mischievous grin spread across his face. This wasn't the tired, resigned smile from the checkout. This was real. It lit up his entire face. Henry, he said, standing up, you are an absolute genius. Aisle 20, let's go. We were a team now, a team of two on a mission, Operation Get Cozy. First apparel, Carter announced, pushing an empty shopping cart. The squeak of its one bad wheel was obscenely loud in the quiet. The dress code is comfortable. We rolled through the dark aisles to the clothing section. It was a bliss selection of fast fashion. Carter immediately went to the rack of generic brand hoodies and sweatpants. I'm so tired of this blue apron, he muttered, pulling a thick gray hoodie off the rack. He grabbed a pair of black fleece sweatpants. He held them up. My new uniform. I found an identical set. We were in the middle of the store, surrounded by mannequins staring at us with blank, judgmental eyes, so I said, holding the clothes, the fitting rooms are not powered right. Carter looked around. Okay, I'll take men's sportswear, you take home goods. Don't look. He grabbed his clothes and disappeared behind a rack of yoga mats. I ducked into the next aisle behind a fortress of discounted towels. Stripping off my damp jeans and t-shirt in the middle of a supermarket was by far one of the top 5 weirdest things I'd ever done. The new fleece was incredibly soft and warm. I felt like a new man. I walked back out into the main aisle. Carter was already there, leaning against the cart. He was wearing the gray hoodie, hood pulled up, and the black sweats. He looked amazing. Drab, ill-fitting work uniform had hidden how good his body was. The casual clothes made him look younger, softer, and absurdly attractive. He looked like the kind of guy I'd see in a real coffee shop, the kind I'd be too intimidated to talk to. He was watching me, a small smile playing on his lips. Better, so much better, I said, feeling the heat rise in my own face. You, it suits you, you too, he said, and his eyes lingered for just a second. Way better than the damn thing you were wearing. Eloquent, I laughed. I'm an artist, not a poet. Now, for the critical part, betting. We raided the home goods aisle like Visigoths. We grabbed the most expensive high-thread count pillows. We took the thickest, plushest comforters and fleece blankets we could find. Our cart was overflowing with domestic luxury. This, Carter declared, grabbing a faux fur throw rug, is for atmosphere. We rolled our treasures back to our camp in the seasonal section. We transformed the 2 lounge chairs into a single massive nest. We piled pillows, draped blankets, and laid the faux fur rug down as a centerpiece. It was an absurd 5-star fort. We settled in side by side, huddled under massive down comforter. We were close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his body, close enough that our shoulders and legs were pressed together from knee to hip. This is, I said, my voice hushed. Insane, this is, Carter replied, his voice a low rumble beside me. The best shift I've ever had. We fell silent again. We'd finished our first glass of whiskey, and the initial adrenaline was fading, replaced by strange, dreamy intimacy. The storm outside was a distant drum roll. The only light came from a single emergency floodlight down the aisle, which cast our little nest in a soft, cinematic glow. So tectonic, I said, breaking the quiet. What was it about? He was quiet for a moment. It was about pressure, he said slowly, about things hidden under the surface, layers and layers of things all pressing down on each other. And the city, that's us, I guess, all the people living on top, not knowing the violence that's holding them up. He turned his head to look at me. Our faces were only inches apart. That's probably not a great description. No, I said, my breath catching. No, it's a perfect description. That's exactly how it felt. His eyes dropped to my mouth. I knew in that second that this night was about to change. The air in our fort, which had been cold, was now thick and electric. I could feel it, a static charge on my skin. He didn't move. I didn't move. It was a stalemate of attraction, and the tension was so thick I felt like I could taste it. You've got a piece of lint, he whispered. What? I whispered back, in Your hair right here. He raised his hand. It wasn't my hair he was reaching for. His fingers, warm and slightly calloused, traced the line of my jaw. It was the softest touch, but it sent a bolt of lightning straight through me. He didn't pull his hand away, he just left it there, his thumb gently stroking my skin. His eyes were dark and he was searching my face for something. Permission, I gave it to him. I leaned in just a fraction of an inch. That was all it took. He met me in the middle. His lips were not what I expected. I expected the rough cashier, the tired student, but they were soft and tentative and tasted of smoky whiskey and the faintest hint of the chocolate bar we'd shared. It wasn't a rush. It was a question. It was a conversation. My hand, acting of its own accord, found its way up to his neck, my fingers tangling in the soft hair at his nape. His other hand came up to cup my face, holding me, and the kiss deepened. It was everything. It was the release of the night's tension. It was the thank you for seeing his art. It was the shared secret of being trapped. It was the warmth of the whiskey and the comfort of the blankets, all distilled into one perfect, overwhelming, in a good way moment. He pulled back just enough so we could breathe. Our foreheads rested together. I could feel his breath on my lips. Wow, breath, yeah, he said, his voice husky. Wow, he looked at me, a unguarded look. I have to be honest, Henry, I've noticed you what? Your late night runs, you always come in around 11:00. You always buy one, maybe two things, and you always look so serious, like you're solving the world's problems in the coffee aisle. I admitted, a laugh bubbling in my chest. The problem of how to talk to the impossibly cute guy at the register. He laughed, a real beautiful laugh. Impossibly cute me in this. He plucked at the blue apron he discarded. Especially in that, I said. He kissed me again. This time there was no question. It was an answer. It was hungry and sure, and it made my toes curl. My hands moved from his neck to his back, pulling him closer until there was no space left between us, just a tangle of limbs and blankets and fleece. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Time had ceased to mean anything. There was just the sound of the rain, the dim light, and the warmth of Carter, solid and real against me. We talked. We did more than talk. We kissed. We explored. It was never explicit. It was sensual. It was the grazing of fingertips over skin. As I helped him out of the hoodie, it was the sharp intake of breath as my lips found the sensitive skin of his neck. It was the weight of him pressing me down into the pillows and the feeling of his heart hammering against mine. It was romantic. It was the thrill of the forbidden, not just the place but the person, the fantasy of the cute stranger made real. We were whispering, not because we had to, but because it felt right. We shared secrets in the dark. He told me about his awful roommate. I told him about the client project that was driving me insane, and then, tangled up in the comforter, lulled by the storm and the warmth of each other, we fell asleep. I woke up to a different kind of quiet. The rain had stopped. The emergency lights were still on, but they were overpowered by a new gray light. Dawn. It was filtering in through the store's high skylights. My first thought was cold. My second thought was Carter. He was still asleep, his head on my chest, his arms slung possessively over my waist. His hair was a mess. His face was relaxed in sleep, and he looked young and peaceful. A small snore escaped him. I lay there for a long time, just watching him, just processing a night of cliched disaster. Movie turned romance. I should have been panicking. I should have been thinking about the morning manager, about the consequences, about the sheer weirdness of it all. Instead, I just felt happy, incredibly, stupidly happy. I gently brushed the hair off his forehead. His eyes fluttered open. He blinked, looked up at me, and a slow, sleepy smile spread across his face. Hey, yourself, I whispered. So that happened. He sat up, stretching, and winced. I am never going to be able to look at the patio furniture the same way again. I laughed. Sitting up with him, me neither. And then we heard it, clunk, thud, a sound from the front of the store, a sound of machinery. Oh God, Carter said, his eyes wide. That's the maglocks. That's the 6:00 a.m. shift. We scrambled. It was a Frantic absurd ballet we were pulling. On our own still damp clothes shoving. Blankets back into the cart fluffing. Pillows and trying to erase all evidence of our nest, the whiskey I said grabbing the bottles, the glasses he hissed wiping them on his old polo shirt. We looked like two teenagers whose parents had just come home early. We got the cart back to Home Goods, throwing the blankets onto a shelf in what we hoped was a normal way. Carter, you in here, the power's still out, front doors are on the fritz. A voice called out, Dave. Carter whispered, his face pale, no, it's Maria, the morning manager, she's nice. Coming, Maria, Carter yelled. He grabbed my arm, okay, we just tell her the truth mostly. Power went out. Doors locked, we were trapped, that's it, I agreed, my heart pounding. We walked casually, we hoped, to the front of the store. A woman in a red polo with a kind, tired face was standing by the registers, a massive flashlight in her hand. She shone it on us. Carter, and who's this? What the hell happened? The alarm logs are all fried and Dave's notes just say locked up. Maria, this is Henry, Carter said. He was my last customer. The power grid went down right as he was leaving. The doors they maglocked. Dave must have locked the fire exit deadbolts from the outside before he left. We were trapped all night. Maria's jaw dropped. She looked from Carter to me to the dark store. All night in the dark. Oh, you poor things, are you okay? What did you do? We made a base camp, Carter said, gesturing vaguely. In the seasonal section it was cold. Maria looked at him, then at me. A slow, knowing smile spread across her face. She looked like a woman who knew things. She said, seasonal, well, as long as you didn't shrink anything, just or dignity, I offered. She laughed. Okay, get out of here, both of you. Carter, you're off the clock, go home. I'll deal with Dave, thank you, Maria. Carter said, his voice full of genuine relief. She shooed us toward the door, which was now propped open. We stepped out onto the wet pavement. The air was cold and clean. The storm had washed the city and everything looked new. We stood there on the sidewalk in the gray morning light. It was awkward. The magic of the night was facing the harsh reality of the day. So I said, clutching my now useless bag with the coffee and chocolate, that happened. Yeah, Carter said. He shoved his hands into the pockets of his jeans. It did. A beat of silence. Hey, he said, turning to me, my shift is over and I'm really tired of this place and I'm really hungry. Me too, I said, and he said, taking a step closer, I think I owe you a real coffee. For seeing my art. Smile broke out on my face. I'd like that, but I was thinking maybe we could get a real breakfast. My treat we can talk about layers and pressure. Carter's smile matched mine. It was real and bright. And it had nothing to do with a 24-hour supermarket. I'd like that, Henry, he said. I'd like that a lot. He held out his hand. I took it and we walked away from the store together as the sun finally started to break through the clouds.